Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Paramita and I heartily welcome you to my channel Paramita PM. If you are new to my channel, then I would request you to go through the content of my channel, look at the videos, and if you really find those videos helpful and if they really heighten your interest, then do like it, share it, and do not forget to subscribe to my channel. And most importantly, please turn on the notification bell button so that you get notified whenever I upload any new videos on my channel. So now, without any further ado, let's get into the lecture. This video lecture discusses kitchen sink drama, its origin, its features, and John Osborne's contribution to kitchen sink drama. We will also have a look at the ironical implication of the term kitchen sink drama, as well as refer to a few examples. Kitchen sink drama. The very term is applied to certain group of British dramas that developed in the 1950s and 1960s, that is in the post-World War II situation or era. This kitchen sink school was a description that was coined by art critic David Sylvester, and he used this term in order to describe painters, who depicted social scenes of domestic life in dark, somber colors. Meaning, he used this term kitchen sink school in order to show how the painters of that time, they depicted the social life of the social life revolving domesticity, that is the kind of life that we lead every day, the quarrels, the squabbles that we have with each other, and the life that we lead within the four walls in dark and somber colors. The term kitchen sink was derived from an expressionist painting by John Bradby of a kitchen sink. So this is the painting, an expressionist painting from where he derived this term kitchen sink. Kitchen sink drama basically focused on the lives of the working class protagonists in a realistic manner. So like I said while explaining the second point is that it depicted this kind of paintings that were described by David Sylvester, depicted daily life, pictures of daily life. So kitchen sink drama, when we come to kitchen sink drama, we find that it deals with the lives of the working class people in a very realistic manner. So therefore, it can be said that kitchen sink drama provides us with a realistic portrayal or a realistic depiction of the lives of the working class people. This kitchen sink drama was associated with the angry young men movement in English literature. I do have a video on this angry young men movement, so I'm not going to discuss it here in detail. So these plays, these kitchen sink dramas expressed great dissatisfaction with the socio-political and economic conditions of the time. I mean, in the post-World War II era in England. So the kind of characters that we come across in these dramas are seen, shouting out, or let's say voicing forth their dissatisfaction, their grudge against the present socio-political economic condition in the post-World War II era in England. So this was the time when the Second World War was over, and this generation, this angry young men generation, they had to undergo let's say they had to bear the after effects of the Second World War, and that led to their dissatisfaction. It also conveyed the disillusionment and discontent that they felt at the failure of the welfare state to live up to its promises. So as far as the welfare state is concerned, what did it promise? It promised to provide everyone with equal opportunities, to provide everyone with employment. Okay, but then what happened? It led to disillusionment. these people, this working class, they found that in spite of being, educated, they were not given any opportunity, to get employed. And therefore it gave rise to their disillusionment and dissatisfaction, and they realized the failure, and they realized that how the welfare state failed to live up to its promises, meaning how the welfare state failed to keep up its promises or to fulfill its promises. So the mood of anger and frustration in their works made them known as angry young men. So those writers or those dramatists who represented the angry young men generation, what they intended to do in their drama was to depict or to portray this mood of anger and frustration of the characters. So, like I said, it is a realistic depiction because this was the scenario in the Second World War, in the post Second World War situation in England. Their plays are referred to as kitchen sink drama due to the increasing interest among contemporary artists in issues centered around domestic scenes. So that is why their plays are referred to as kitchen sink drama. Why? Because the contemporary artists, the writers as well of the time, even the audience, they showed much interest in issues related to their life, related to domesticity, and therefore these writers who represented the angry young men generation, they preferred to provide readers with this realistic depiction, whereby they come to know about the situation, the real picture of England in the post Second World War era. Talking about the features of kitchen sink drama. So the first important feature or the significant feature of kitchen sink drama is that it depicts or portrays the lives of the ordinary people, people like you and me who are educated, and the focus was mainly on the working class people, like lower class youth who often worked on unsatisfying menial jobs. So it means that they were educated. Now this is the problem here. The issue arises here that the young generation of the time, in spite of being educated, they had to do menial jobs and live in cramped homes. They didn't have a good life. They did not earn enough. And at the same time, we find that despite their education, maybe despite being a graduate, they remained unemployed. So the characters often represented in kitchen sink dramas are poor, and they come from the industrial parts of the country. Even the dialogue that we find is quite colloquial, reflecting the language of the regions, the language that is spoken in those regions. And as far as the protagonist is concerned, the protagonist is typically an intelligent young man from the lower middle or working class who rails at the established social order. So, here I would like to refer to the text Look Back in Anger by John Osborne. So, Jimmy Porter, representing the angry young man in the play, is an intelligent young man. He belongs to the working class, and despite being a university graduate, we find that he runs a sweet stall. So we can understand his frustration, we can understand his anxiety, and throughout the play, what is seen is his ravings, that we find how Jimmy Porter raves and rants throughout the play and continues to voice forth his dissatisfaction with the established social order. So, kitchen sink dramas attack the stifling traditions and attitudes of the rigid class system of the time. So we can see that class distinction was prevalent in the post Second World War era in England, as a result of which class mattered a lot. And the protagonist, like I said, in a kitchen sink drama, for belonging to the working class, is therefore deprived of an opportunity, to get employed. And so here we find that these plays, these dramas, attack, critically, let's say, satirize, attack the stifling traditions and attitudes of the rigid class system of the time, meaning that how people, who followed this class system, who were very rigid, okay, who abided, who followed these traditions, simply looked down upon those people belonging to the working class. They looked down upon them, they neglected them, and they even felt that they do not deserve, employment or a proper place, a respectable position in society. So therefore it becomes quite natural for an individual belonging to the or representing the working class to vent out his or her frustration. So therefore kitchen sink drama focuses on the realistic portrayal of working class life and can be seen as a reaction to the refined, well-made play known for its artificiality, and also as a reaction against the working class stereotypes portrayed in plays by upper middle class writers. Now this is very significant. So firstly, kitchen sink drama focuses on the realistic portrayal. So it provides us with a true picture of their life. And then we can see that this play can be seen as a reaction. Reacting to what? Reacting to those plays where or those plays which do not provide us with a true picture of the society. Rather, we come across an artificial, superficial depiction. So it was a kind of reaction to this artificial plays, and a reaction also against the working class stereotypes. And because those writers belonging to the upper middle class, they simply stereotype the working class people. For example, they stereotype the working class people as abusive, rough, and rude, not at all. And they seem to, and they display them as characters who do not deserve, who have some qualities which make them undeserving, which make them appear as someone who does not deserve a respectable position in society. So this stereotypical portrayal of the working class people by the upper middle class writers was also attacked by kitchen sink dramas. John Osborne's play Look Back in Anger is a classic example of this type of drama, for it represents the anger, resentment, and frustration of the post-war youth generation against the establishment. By the term establishment, I mean the government, the social, economic, and political order of the time. And Jimmy Porter, the protagonist in Look Back in Anger, therefore represents the prototype of the angry young man. A typical angry young man who is disgusted with his life, who is undoubtedly an intelligent young man, yet unemployed, running a sweet stall, and therefore dissatisfied not just with his own life, but dissatisfied with the entire system. So the kitchen sink dramas portrayed the poor living conditions of the working people, of the working class people, their lack of employment in spite of being educated because of the rigid class system that prevailed in the then society, the extreme poverty that they encountered, and of course turbulent relationships. We get to see how the frustration of the protagonist impacts his relationship as well. So to sum up the features, we can say that during the 1950s, or in the era after the Second World War, a group of younger working class playwrights or dramatists, they began to write plays where they preferred to depict ideas and problems, issues that they encountered or that they were very much concerned about. And so John Osborne, being one of those playwrights, represented the angry young men generation, and therefore penned down this wonderful drama, Look Back in Anger. Now, if we look at John Osborne's contribution to kitchen sink drama, we have to accept it, we have to admit rather, that Osborne brought this new trend in playwriting, because these plays captured the anger, immediacy of post-war youth culture and the alienation that resulted in the British working classes. Meaning, like I said, if we take into account the after effects or the consequences of the Second World War, then the young generation of the time, they got badly victimized. And because of this, we find these plays, portraying them, their thoughts, their anger. And this was the culture, that was prevalent in the post Second World War era in England. And these people belonging to the working class, they felt very much alienated from the mainstream society. Why is it so? The reason being that because it was a class-based society, so they felt completely alienated because they were not given a respectable position in the mainstream society. They were not allowed to be a part of the mainstream society. And as a result of that, they suffered from identity crisis. They suffered from this sense of futility, sense of fragmentation, sense of alienation. And this actually happened to the British, to the people, belonging to the British, belonging to the working class. It enabled Osborne to comment, therefore, on a range of domestic social dilemmas in this time period. Now, when an individual is dissatisfied with everything around him, so it also leads to his dissatisfaction with his own life. And then we find that John Osborne brilliantly portrays this or depicts this in his play Look Back in Anger through the character Jimmy Porter. And therefore Jimmy Porter therefore becomes a spokesman, okay, and he is made to comment on a range of domestic social dilemmas. Like we find characters like Jimmy Porter, who is in a state of dilemma, who appeared to be completely indecisive and gets angry at every step. They can be compared against theatrical movements. Here the word they refers to kitchen sink dramas. So we can compare kitchen sink dramas to avant-garde theaters because of its experimental nature, as well as the theater of the absurd that emerged during in the 20th century, characterized by the plays of authors such as Samuel Beckett. Because absurd theater also focuses on the absurdity of life, on the existential crisis of an individual, identity crisis, like I said, the sense of hopelessness, the sense of purposelessness, futility, loneliness, fragmentation. So all these are also dealt with by the absurd theater. So from that perspective, we can compare kitchen sink drama to avant-garde theater or the theater of the absurd. Therefore, it can be said that kitchen sink drama brought the real lives and social inequality of ordinary working class people to the stage. And this appealed to the audience of the time, because they could relate themselves very well to what was being staged before them, because they could see their lives they could identify themselves, they could relate themselves to the characters, because kitchen sink drama simply aimed at depicting the real lives, the real picture, no matter how frustrating it is. They did not provide the audience with let's say with a beautiful picture of their life, because that would have been then an untrue depiction, because the lives that these working class people led, it was highly frustrating, and they suffered much inequality in society because of the class distinction prevalent during that time. So this is something that is portrayed by the kitchen sink drama. The lives of these people were caught between struggles of power, industry, politics, and social homogenization. Homogenization. So we find these characters, that at every step they are struggling. They are struggling between, and they are simply caught in between, because they, first of all, they are not given that opportunity to enjoy any kind of power, and not even facilities or advantages. So it was a society, which appeared to be homogenized, where only the aristocrats, the upper middle class people, enjoyed everything in society, and we can call them that they represented the privileged class in the society. Another chief characteristic of the kitchen sink drama was the way the characters, they expressed themselves. Like I said, when we read John Osborne's play, Kitchen Sink Drama, as readers, sometimes we get annoyed with Jimmy Porter because of his ruthlessness, the way he behaves with his wife, Allison, the way he treats. But like I always say, that as a reader, we need to understand the character. We need to understand what the author or what the dramatist, intends to convey through such a ruthless portrayal of the protagonist. Why does he make the protagonist, shout all the time? Why does he make him appear, so cruel? There must be some reasons behind such portrayal, right? So these characters, like I said, this world is in no way an artificial one. It is a completely realistic world where these characters live. This is the world that they occupy, okay, and they express their unvarnished emotion, meaning they do not make any attempt, to present themselves as polished individuals. So therefore, the emotions they express are plain and unpolished. They do not try to project themselves as very kind, or having virtues, or a virtuous person. They never make that attempt. Rather, they they speak their minds, okay, and at the same time they express their extreme discontentment with the ruling class status quo. Meaning, who represented the ruling class? Of course, the upper middle class, okay, and their status consciousness, this class consciousness, is highly attacked by these characters. They depicted the most intimate aspects of domestic life. So kitchen sink drama, because we know kitchen and sink, okay, this is something that is associated with our domestic life, internal, or let's say intimate domestic life, and being a part of domestic life. Therefore, these dramas, these kitchen sink dramas, provide us with the most intimate aspect. So it's not that we always get to see the protagonists or the characters, abusing each other, or maybe shouting at each other, criticizing each other, but we also get to see intimate moments of love between them. It moved the action and emotion of the theater from depictions of the public space of people's lives into the most intimate of settings. So when we read a kitchen sink drama, we find that the actions do not involve the public space, be it a theater or let's say a party or maybe a marketplace as such. Marketplaces are seen because these dramas deal with working class people, but like I said, public space of people's lives, maybe they are enjoying a party, they're enjoying a dinner at someone's place, so all these are not depicted. Instead, what we see, it provides us with a glimpse, we get a glimpse of the most intimate of settings, and that lets us have, as readers, a true picture of the kind of life that these working class people led. Kitchen sink dramas are therefore highly realistic in nature, as we can see, because it makes the kitchen the center of familial and social life, because we see everything, we come across actions, incidents in these plays that revolve around family life and social life. And this kitchen becomes the center of the familial and social life. In fact, the boundaries of intimate domestic life and public life were blurred and created a realism not seen before in British theatre. So the boundaries are blurred. This boundary between private life and public life, okay, is no longer visible. It appears to be quite easy, quite blurred, and this creates that realistic picture, something that was never seen before in British theatre, and it appealed to the audience much because of this particular feature, because of this realistic depiction with which they could, the people of the time, the audience could very well relate to. Kitchen sink drama. Now, if we look at the term kitchen sink drama or kitchen sink, then kitchen and sink, these are something that are traditionally or conventionally, associated with women, because this is the domain that belongs to women. So the domestic world during this time was believed to be the domain of the feminine. Okay, meaning that the domestic world will be occupied by, or the private domain will be occupied by women, because it is domestic, it is the domestic world, it is the house. But ironically, although the term has these two words in it, kitchen sink, okay, but we find that most of in fact, the major kitchen sink dramas revolve around a male protagonist, and everything, the actions, everything are centered around a masculine point of view. So, like I have written here, that the major kitchen sink works which take place in the mid 20th century, that is 1950s and 60s onwards, they are all centered around a masculine point of view. And these plays, although it is named as kitchen sink, quote unquote, but they are hardly centered around the emotions and tribulations of the women characters in it. It's not that these plays do not have women characters, but what becomes the primary focus is the male protagonist, his troubles, his emotions, his frustrations, his anger. So from this perspective, we can say that the term is quite ironical, although it revolves around the two words, kitchen and sink, yet the feminine voice is not given much importance, or the female characters are not given, a proper, or let's say a proper voice, to speak forth their emotions. The power dynamic between male and female, often assumed to be masculine. Therefore, it is quite natural, because the plays revolved around a male protagonist. Therefore, everything associated with their struggle, or everything associated with the conflict between male and female, was seen completely from a male point of view, or a male perspective. Women are therefore assumed to serve the men of their household. Yes, this is something that they were supposed to do, to serve the men, And when conflicts do arise, it is often the man who is portrayed as the suffering protagonist, while the suffering of the female protagonist goes unheeded. It is not given much attention. In fact, attention is not, it's not that the problems or the suffering of the female characters are not portrayed. They are portrayed, but the degree of importance that is supposed to be given even to the tribulations or the emotional turmoil of a female character, that is not done in a kitchen sink drama. So like I said, that women are supposed to serve their men, and even when conflicts arise, it is only men who are portrayed as being victimized. Okay, and it is their suffering that becomes the primary focus in the drama. And it is seen that women's suffering is always a result of the suffering of the male. This is how it is perceived, that a man is suffering. Okay, so as a result of which woman is suffering. So a woman suffering is therefore always a result of the suffering of the male. So if he had not suffered, then she wouldn't have suffered as well. This was the perspective, and that is why the term appears to be ironical. These are some of the famous examples of kitchen sink dramas. The first being Look Back in Anger, 1956. My Flesh, My Blood, which was actually a radio play in 1957. A Taste of Honey, 1958. Sparrows Can't Sing, 1960. And Alfie, 1963. So if we read these plays, we shall come across all the features of kitchen sink drama in them.